All right, good evening. Welcome to the Personnel Committee meeting. Do we have any courtesy of the floor? Seeing hearing none, we'll move into a review of the county executive appointments and reappointments. First, to the General Purpose Authority, Lance Calando, Nazareth, PA, being considered for a position to finish Ann Baum's term to begin March 17, 2023, and to end December 31st, 2025.
Move it forward.
Thank you. Next, for the Graysdale Advisory Board, reappointment for James Irwin, Nazareth, Pennsylvania, considered for a 2-year term beginning April 21st, 2023, ending April 19th, 2025.
All right, we can move it forward.
Another reappointment for the Graysdale Advisory Board is Elaine Reynolds from Easton. Same term of April 21st, 2023, April 19th, 2025.
Move forward.
Thank you. Next, a reappointment to Graysdale Advisory Board, Bill Ryan, 2-year term, 21st April 2023, and ends April 19th, 2025.
Move forward.
Mary Ann Schwoyer for a reappointment, Bath, Pennsylvania, considered for 2-year term, same term.
Move forward.
Lou Ann Vogel, Nazareth, Pennsylvania, 2-year term, reappointment, same term.
Move it.
So I have a question. How many people are on that board? Do we know? Like, is this a whole, like, the whole slate just got reappointed? I think it begs to ask, because there's a ton of people, they're all being reappointed at the same time.
That's a good question.
Can we find that out for tomorrow evening? How many people are on the board? How many people are supposed to be on the board?
We'll send a memo and answer for it. Okay, Linda?
Well, I can check. In fact, I can go check now if you want.
Yep, that's fine.
Somebody's already checking. Linda,
She's texting Jen.
she's working on it. Ron, who's on it now? From our council?
For advisory, I am.
You're on Grace
I am,
Advisory?
yep.
And they haven't had a meeting yet, as far as you know?
That's correct, as far as I know.
John Brown is on the phone.
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, we can hear you.
That's louder than in person. That's
Yeah.
funny.
Somebody turn it up.
Should I move forward and then we could get that by the end of the meeting? An appointment to the Industrial Development Authority, Noreen Barron, Easton, Pennsylvania. Ms. Barron is being considered for a 5-year term to begin March 17, 2023, and end March 17, 2028.
Is that unusual for 5 years?
I have no idea. Who was on that authority from us?
Airport.
Industrial? Was it John Cusick?
John,
The liaison, yeah.
Are they normally 5-year terms, John? Like Graysdale is that a normal?
What we have is a conflict between the state law regarding authorities and the county. County charter indicates that it's supposed to be no longer than 2, but state law allows terms up to 5 years. That's come into question with the airport authority and some other of our authorities. I think the way that we've resolved that is that if it does state or state-related business, we've allowed the 5-year, the state law to take hold. And if it's some of our advisory boards like drug and alcohol, ones that aren't as under state authority, they tend to just be 2-year appointments. Personally, I think we should stick with our charter, but the state law trumps it when it comes to the length of some of these appointments.
So for the next personnel meeting next month, can we get some of these, this information on these boards, especially, because I know when Becky Bartlett was here, she updated them all, and she knew how many members they were supposed to have, and some of them that I've served on, they're short members, so could we get some updates on all of them for the next personnel meeting, please?
Do you just want to know what the terms are, or do you want to
would
know
be interested to know-
why they're that length?
Which ones we have, how many
Like, do we have
people
to
are
go for
supposed
their
to be on them, and
articles of
what.
incorporation in order to get?
I don't need that
terms?
deep. I think we have a lot of them, and we just serve on them, and we make assumptions about them, and then we never hear about them. Like it looks like this whole board is being reappointed at the same time, and there's no staggering. I know that some of the other boards I'm on, if you serve a term, you have to wait, and you can't serve a consecutive term. So we should know that before we agree to these appointments.
I know we have the length of the terms, but I don't know from the advisory boards what their rules and regulations are as far as their appointments. Like, we have a list of the appointees and stuff and their terms, but we don't have the rules and regulations from each advisory board as to how they appoint people and how long they can serve.
Mr. Hackman?
Yeah, I just want to mention, I believe in whenever there's a conflict, state law always takes precedent. I know it's confusing though, because the charter, and there's areas in the charter which have always conflicted, but I mean, if you really want to get down to it, we probably, the charter should reflect what the state's saying. I mean, for most of the boards, it's hard to find members. Now, I'm not going to speak for every board. I know human services boards, it's hard to find people that are willing to give their time. But if we want to look at it, that's fine, but we can always look at changing the charter if we feel that, strongly about it to conform with the state regs. But I think, we should get the appropriate state regulations for boards and authorities as well. We could try and do some research, find that. I think it would be helpful, that's all. That's all I have.
I think we'll just have the solicitor take a look at it and get back to us, and we'll go from there. I think that might be the appropriate thing to do. Let Chris take a look at it and get back to us. Everybody agree with that?
So that wasn't to hold up Ms. Barron's appointment. It
No.
was just a matter of asking the question. Thank
Right.
you. Can I have a motion to move her forward?
Sure.
Yes, we did. I thought we did.
I don't think I did. I think I asked the question in the middle. I'm sorry.
Move it forward then.
And appointment for Personnel Appeals Board, Michael Lichtenberger, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, considered for a 2-year term to begin March 17, 2023, and February 3rd, 2025.
So move.
If I could just chime
Yes.
in. Here's an example where we have one that is strictly under county purview, that is a 2-year term.
Sure, because it's
So
our board.
that is the conflict.
So I just got the Graysdale one, and it looks like everybody's term expires on April 19th, 2023.
And how many are there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and we didn't get 9 appointments today.
We got 4.
I'll pass this around. You can pass it back and forth, please, as long as I get it back. Thanks. Last, individual for a reappointment to the Personnel Appeals Board, Anthony Tony Pristash, Northampton, Pennsylvania, considered for a 2-year term, March 17th and February 3rd, 2025.
Move forward.
Thank you. And that is all I have. Is there any other discussion before adjournment? Okay, that's it.
All right.
Meeting adjourned.
The Finance Committee will commence. I just want to make a note before I start. We have number 4 is discussion regarding the Upper Mount Bethel Township LRTA, and I wasn't sure how many people would be here besides the township to speak to this if they wanted to. certainly anybody has the right, members of the public, up to 5 minutes to come up and speak. But if the ordinance is introduced tomorrow, then they're 2 weeks hence, there'll be there would be a public hearing again. So today isn't the only chance you would have to speak to this. We introduce an ordinance, then we have to wait until to at least the following meeting before we can vote on it. But before we vote on it, we do have to open up public comment on any ordinance. So I just wanted to make that clear up front, and we'll go from there. All right, so is there any courtesy of the floor? Do you want to wait until we have the discussion? Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, the reason we put it on number 4 is I knew there'd be some people here, so I thought, well, we'll go through a few of these other things because they're not going to take very long at all, I would guess. And then I'll open it up, and so I will, chairman's discretion. Anybody who wants to speak on that, we'll do that at that time. Does anyone have anything else they want to speak to regarding any of the other issues? If not, I'm going to go to close that, and I'm going to go to discussion regarding the donation from the Friends of Graysdale. We received a resolution. As you know, council is empowered to accept gifts made, donations to the county, and I'll read the resolution. Okay. The Friends of Graysdale wish to donate a wheelchair swing that has an approximate value of $7,500 for the use and enjoyment of all wheelchair-bound residents of the home. And now therefore be it resolved that the County Council of Northampton County hereby authorizes the county executive to accept the gift of one wheelchair swing to be used at the home made by Friends of Graysdale. So anyone move that forward?
Yeah.
You have a question? Go ahead,
Yeah, no,
discussion.
certainly I welcome the donation, but what I did want to point out was, unfortunately, earlier this month, we did not receive the report from Graysdale. They weren't here at the Human Services Committee. A couple things I did want to point out, though. We did get the Q4 report, and I realize it's unaudited and things could change, but the preliminary operating deficit was $5 million, but there was some transfer in, which ultimately resulted in a reduction of $3.2 million of their fund balance, and that's concerning. And then on top of that, I got our letter from CCAP that it indicated that in the governor's budget, that there is no proposed increase in the Medicaid reimbursement rate. Now, that's something we've been complaining about for quite some time, and with inflation at 6% or so, I don't think that's right. So again, next time I see a state representative or senator in passing, I'm going to urge them to try to increase that rate, because that doesn't only affect Graysdale, that affects every nursing home. So it's important that keep up with inflation. But as far as the donation, thank you very much. I'd be happy to accept it.
Okay. All right. So I guess that's being moved forward to tomorrow night. Next on the agenda is the discussion regarding Administrative Code Article 13 contracts. And we have 4 of those, I believe. And the first one I will read is AMO Environmental Decisions. Whereas on February 28th, 2023, the Northampton County Council received a request from the county executive for County Council to adopt a resolution approving the contract in the amount of $56,200 with AMO Environmental Decisions as environmental consultants for grant management, site inventory and selection, site assessments and reporting, remedial action program plans, and actions. Now therefore be it resolved that Northampton County Council does hereby confer with the recommendation of the county executive as set forth in the attached documentation, term 2023 to 2026, to approve the contract with AMO Environmental Decisions. And you have the procurement notice attached with the information on it. So is there any discussion? Huh? Mr. Amealy's here, if you want to, oh, and if you would come up and want to identify yourself.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Mark Tominick. I'm the Deputy Director of DCD here for Northampton County. Thank you for your time today. I will be passing around a brief presentation from AMO Environmental Decisions, who is the selected group to assist us with our EPA Brownfields remediation grant. We were awarded $3 million in supplemental funding, and we figured we'd go to the experts to help us administer these funds. I will now introduce Greg Firely from AMO Environmental Decisions.
If you could just restate your name for the clerk.
Greg Firely.
Spell that.
Which part?
Greg's
G-R-E-G,
easy.
I think we can handle that.
F-I-R-E-L-Y. Hello, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
So essentially, thank you. We responded to the advertisement for the RFP for environmental consulting for the EPA grant. So what you have in your hands is just a brief overview of who we are, what we do, and our experience. So I'll be brief, or I can go into great detail if you'd like. It's all up to you. I can talk about brownfields for hours. We were established in 2002. We are nationally recognized. We are a certified small business in Pennsylvania. Very proud of that. One of our owners is a veteran from the Army. We are made up of geologists, scientists, hydrogeologists, GIS analysts, and we are brownfields specialists. Take great pride in the work that we do with brownfields and have been working on brownfields for over 18 years. We are partners with the EPA and DEP and such that we assist them in outreach when it comes time to conferences about this information. We teach people how to write grants. We teach people how to manage grants. Our project team will be myself. I'm the project director. Dr. Bettison will be the manager of the project. He handles the day-to-day and the field operations. And Paul Malmquist, one of our owners, he will be the QA and QC. And our other partners on the team are Bluestone. They are a certified woman-owned business. And WSP, which will really be on call as needed to any high-end design engineering. And our experience with brownfields and the EPA goes back over 18 years. I wrote my first grant in Lackawanna County in 2006. And since that time, we've managed or written and been awarded 26 grants. This May, that'll be 28. We've leveraged over $7 million through the EPA and managed all of them. And again, after this May, that'll be $8 million. We've leveraged other grants as well, because you can roll these grants into more grants for the same type of work. So basically, we've been working with land developers, folks like yourself across the state, and we leverage the funding to see these sites get moved past. You have an environmental liability when you buy a property. If you don't assess it and identify it before you take ownership of it, you then own that liability moving forward. So this stalls a lot of redevelopment. So this grant funding comes in and removes that obstacle. And we help roll that out. We also help identify sites. We know what land developers want. We know what they're looking for. We have them often, actually yesterday, come to us looking for sites because they know we can handle the environmental at no cost or low cost. And like I said, we've done hundreds of the phase ones, which is step one, to identify that liability. Multiple phase twos. Whether or not you move on to a phase two is up to you, based upon the findings in the phase one and whether or not you want to spend your grant money on it. You drive the bus. We're just the engine. I'm going to write that down. That's a good one.
Pretty good.
I've seen many, many sites actually implement this funding, and it works. I mean, it's so rewarding to see these sites that you link it. Am I doing something? That was cut back, but we can do that.
Oh, okay. You keep doing what you're doing.
Okay. In Norristown, in Scranton, in Lackawanna, in Greene County, in Erie, in Philly, in Bucks County, where else are we? In Clarion, loser. We're seeing these sites get moved on, get sold, get redeveloped, and cleaned up and safely. And the great thing about some of these grant programs is your actual Act 2 cleanup, that's when you go through DEP release of liability. Your end result could be a cap if you're able to leave the contamination in the ground safely. We built a slab in Scranton that's going to have a park built on top of it, all grant funded. It's a very expensive slab, but still all grant funded. And the management of your grant is very important to being re-awarded. You are graded on how you do it. The EPA likes working with me, not to brag, but because we do it right and we do it well, and they know that, which is why we've actually been down to Region 3 and in other regions because of the national conferences to explain how it really works. It's not you can't just let it go and run. There's steps that you need to take to follow their methods. We understand your goals, that you're looking to revitalize Northampton. You have this loan fund, and you want to roll it out, leverage more grant funding, and like I said, you can use this to match other state grants, which we've done. You want to develop your revolving loan fund so it comes back and rolls and rolls and rolls again, and we want to help you with that. We will target your redevelopment. We actually go out and look at sites. We canvass sites. We drive around. We use your information that you've already done, your comprehensive plan, your land zoning, your planning. We evaluate that and overlay it with mapping and then see the sites with you to identify areas that could be reinvigorated and areas that land developers want because of other things around it, the market, drive times, things along those natures that we already have the information on. And we're asked about when we get these calls. And we say, oh, yes, we have a grant for that. I have land developers call me and say, where are you now? Because that's where we want to be. We will assist with you with all the reporting requirements for the EPA, which are ever-changing, and help you identify sites. We will create a list. We can map it, overlay your information, like I said, with the areas, the zones you want to be, opportunity zones, environmental justice zones. And we also do things like this where we're outreach to explain the program, we explain the sites, we explain the information, and we speak like lay people. I usually do that, not the doctor, because he talks a little too high up. But we explain it in such a way that doesn't go over your head. Not that you don't understand it, but I do it every day, day in and day out. So I understand the methodology of what you're looking for, what you want to hear. And we bring folks out to explain to them, let them know the program, if requested, understand how it works and operates. And then we get that site inventory, we get the sites, we get the public to state, I've been driving by this site for decades. What are you going to do about it? Now we can. We can do things about it. We can help. Handle all the environmental data, analysis, reporting, and field work. We not only manage the implementation of the grant, but we actually go out and do the work as well with our subs and our contractors and our team. So we implement the program because with the EPA grant, and as you're well aware, each site is different. You never know what you're going to get. So you have to submit a work plan to the EPA, which they review. And another important feature of this is the review times for the EPA for each scope of work is 2 months. So from start to finish, if you want to move on a site for a phase 2, you're looking, bottom line, 6 months to go from go to it's done. And that's just the assessment. So we want to be aware of timelines and moving things along. It's very important. And we can design the remedy for the site as well as implement it under this grant program on your behalf. And then site cleanup, get it through Act 2, DEP, and then the reporting requirements to show what you've done, not only each year, but at the end when you wrap it all up. So we have templates that we've developed in conjunction with EPA in such a manner that they've reviewed and approved every time. So we're ready to hit the ground immediately with what you need to do to get started. That's it in a nutshell. Any questions?
As the gentleman said, any questions for Mr. Firely? All right, I'll start with Ms. Vargas.
I have a question for Merrick. Can you remind me what project this is? Because he's doing a nice pitch, but I don't have context for it.
Sure thing. So the Northampton County actually has a very successful history with the EPA Brownfields Revolving Loan Program. So through our success, we were able to acquire a supplemental funding of $3 million. So we were trying to go and bring, when I came aboard, I saw we were about to apply. I wanted to see this and hit the ground running. And so our team was able to secure this funding, and we think that AMO Solutions, Environmental Solutions, is the right partner to help us achieve all our goals.
I agree.
But we don't, so we're asking them to write the grant for us, or?
Nope, grant
I'd
was,
still like to know what
grant.
the project
Sure,
is.
sure. So they're helping us administer this funding. So it is a grant and a revolving loan program. So out of the $3 million, I think we have 2.8 is allocated towards grant/loan. So it usually gets split in half. This will be used for environmental cleanup projects. Currently, we have one active one in the Eastern Iron Meadow, which is our previous allocated funding. This is for new projects. So as we see, buildings that are deteriorated, that are clear brownfield sites, they will help us identify these projects, work with whoever the landowner is, or if it's developer, figure out the right solutions in doing phase ones, phase twos, and helping us on the administrative side as well as being professionals. One of the things that drew us to AMO was their connection with the EPA and how well they are familiar and fluent with their program.
So we don't have specific projects, they're gonna help us find those projects. Am I
Correct.
hearing you correctly?
Correct.
Thank you. That was my question.
Now, they're going to help us find projects. Would that include county-owned homes that we are using?
They could definitely be added to a list to be reviewed. I think with this amount of funding, we're looking for, larger sites that have clear, underutilized, blighted, and brownfield issues. But certainly that's part of having the professionals here to know if the site's eligible for the funding and see if anything can be done.
Well, I'm asking that question, maybe we have county-owned homes that people are living in that need attention, that things need to be fixed, so we could, maybe they got a 25-year-old stove and we actually need to update it, that type of scenario, because we own the property.
Sure, yeah, definitely. Helping out these constituents is very important to us. This particular funding is for environmental phase 1 and phase 2 cleanup.
Okay.
So it's basically contaminated
It's more-
soils, et cetera.
It's more big things. Gotcha.
Correct.
Mr. Kusick?
Yeah, I guess my question is, how do we not have a list of potential sites? I mean, we've been doing this for quite some time. You don't have anything identified? that-
We definitely do have a certain level of sites. On the initial planning before I came in here, there was some sites in Bethlehem, certain Wilson sites. We're trying to be comprehensive with this. So as much as we've, advertised out to the municipalities to keep us informed on available sites, there's only so much bandwidth as far as IDing sites that are ready to go. And part of the reason that we're contracting out this work here is to be able to identify and work with these landowners. That's not taking up the bandwidth for staff.
Have you reached out to the municipalities? I mean, any borough council member or township supervisor could probably hand you a list of 3 to 5 projects in their
Absolutely,
backyard.
and when the initial process went through, that was what was surveyed, and it's not that we don't have a list. We're just looking to canvass the situation, ID priorities, and figure out the best course to go forward with the most pressing issues.
Okay, well, and I'll add one. I've been driving by the Dixie Cup for
I was
decades.
going to ask the same question. I was gonna
And
ask the same
it
question.
hasn't changed, so if you could put that on the list, thank you.
All right, any other, Ms. Zirinsky?
So it says that Task 6, remedial actions, cleanup activities costs will be additional, determined by site basis. Is there a ranking system that you use to determine which properties or sites get priority?
That's a great question. Yes, we developed one. We have one. Basically, what it does is we pull together the inventory, which is dynamic. It's always changing because some products get sold, bought, don't want to be touched. And once we have our inventory, I have inventories that are 25 sites. I have some that are over 100, depending on the county we're in. And we developed this basically a ranking system where we have different types of questions designed specifically for the county, and each one is weighted. So we will review that. We'll sit down and go over your top 10, your top 20, your top 50, and we can rank them. So there's no bias. And you'll get a score out of 100. And based upon that, and it's based upon things such as workforce or transportation routes, industry, the level of assumed impacts, and all these things are calculated.
Oh, right. And the cost of cleanup then?
Totally dependent upon the site and the end use. Your cleanup is based upon what your end use is going to be. If it's going to be used for residential, there's a higher level. If it's used for industrial use, it's less of a level because based upon the time spent, the toxic risk calculation, which is where they came out with the standards of DEP, based upon an 8-hour day versus being there for, you know, your life and a kid who might want to eat dirt like mine.
It happens.
It does. I
Yeah.
mean, you let it happen, and then she learns. So that's why I put in there, the cost for the remedy can vary greatly depending upon what you're dealing with. If you have a solvent in the ground that sinks and can travel in groundwater, you're gonna have to install a lot of wells. And that's all prescriptive to how the DEP wants to see the land characterized in order to approve the release of liability to identify that what has been cleaned is actually cleaned up.
And so here you have task 3, and then it goes to task 5. Is there a reason why task 4 was excluded?
I don't see-
And what would that be?
Bear with me.
It's okay. I just wondered if there was like a task.
Oh, it's in there? Yeah. Oh. Oh, yeah, 3.
Yeah, it's on this sheet here.
Right.
Where it says 56,200.
That's a great question.
So in our application to receive the supplemental funding, there were certain tasks that we were looking to contract out, such as what he's described, and there were other tasks that us internally can handle.
Oh, okay.
So
four-
tasks that aren't listed here are being handled internally.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good explanation. So for $56,200, you're going to administer this grant and do all this other work for what period of time?
Your grant is for 3 years, correct?
3 years. Wow. Okay.
So the things that we can, you know, definitely state a price on were included. Like I know this, like a phase 1, that's $5,500. To do the reporting, I know what that's going to be. Off the top of my head, I don't have it, but it's written down. The cleanup, all dependent upon the site.
Sure.
So just to be totally open and transparent, we can't tell you.
But that's why you're using this grant to leverage other grants.
Correct.
Got it.
But you can use this grant for the remedy and the cleanup as well.
Sure. I don't know how far this 56,000 is going to go, but, you know.
Well, for just the reporting and like, well, that was for just the base cost for like one phase 1, so.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's an estimate. When you prepare the grant application into the EPA and they understand this, you just have estimates. You back into a number, essentially. So each one, you may say, we're going to do, you know, 10 phase 1s and 8 phase 2s. You may do 1. You may be 2, if you're lucky, just because it's going to eat up that much of the cost. Because, I mean, to install a well, that's $8,000. That's one well. So, and then to go out and you have to sample that 8 times over 2 years for your actual closure. So, and the analytical costs as well. Some soil samples are $1,000 a pop. That's up.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other discussion for council? If not, does somebody want to move this forward tomorrow?
Moving forward.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Farwell.
Thank you. Thank you all. See you soon.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Next, we have the Touch of Class Services. We can all use that. Touch of Class Services LLC. Whereas on March 1st, 2023, Northampton County Council received a request from the county executive for county council to adopt a resolution approving a contract in the amount of $53,000 a year over a 3-year period for a total of $159,000 with 2 1-year renewals for a revised estimated total of $265,000 with Touch of Class Services LLC for remains transport, for the coroner's office. And I see that Mr. Lysick is here. So I guess, would you like to take this one?
Yeah.
Zach?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. My recommendation is that we accept this, and this is the organization that we've been using for the last term of the contract, and they've been very good. There have been no issues whatsoever with this company. They've been very helpful in what they do.
Mr. Lysick, Given the economy and the skyrocketed interest rate, inflation rate, is this higher, I don't know, now, is this new contract a higher amount than the past contracts?
He kept his, there was one increase during the last contract, but he's kept his price the same as the last contract, with that increase. So I
So it's the same
honestly,
as
I
it
was a little bit
last year.
surprised. Yes,
Same as it was
yes,
at the end of this year.
Yes.
Okay, any questions?
This is a yearly contract, Zach?
yes, yes, it is, sir. So that's not a set amount. It's based on the number of removals that occur. It just could,
I
we're
think the
estimating it
important
could
thing
be
is
up to that.
with a contract like this.
Yes.
That there's a max amount written in.
Yes.
But it could vary as you get up to that max account. We have other contracts like that. But that, am I correct, Mr.
Yes,
Lysick?
yes, you are.
Okay.
What happens if it gets?
So, wait, hold on, any other, Mr. Myers, are you finished? Did you have more to ask?
I'm looking, I'll get back to it.
Oh, well, if you have it now, go ahead. All right. Ms. Zirinsky, you wanted to ask something?
I just asked, what happens when it gets to the maximum? Do you come back and then ask for more? Because it seems like this is such a necessary service.
I would imagine, I'm very sorry that I'm not sure what the regulations are in the code, but whatever those regulations are, I would respect and honor. Yeah, and if that's coming back to you, which I'm sure it is, I would do that. But I don't expect that to happen because we estimate high so that it's not an issue.
Right,
Okay,
yeah. Are you finished, Tara?
sure am.
Any other questions for Mr. Lysick?
Motion to move it forward.
Okay, Mr. Myers, did you have any other question before it's moved? Okay,
I read it and saw something that it answered for me.
okay, we're moving that forward, thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. bye now.
Okay, next we have Flyway Excavating. Whereas on March 7th, 2023, the Northampton County Council received a request from the county executive, excuse me, for county council to adopt a resolution approving a contract in the amount of $103,725 for a term of 1 year with Flyway Excavating for the Monocacy Stream restoration. Any discussion? Anybody here want to come up? I'll open it up to discussion. Mr. Amelie's here, so I guess he'll field these if there's questions. Who? Mr. Myers?
What exactly are we restoring and not?
So this project is to remove several man-made structures along the Monocacy Creek at the Archibald Johnston Park that are they're in poor condition, as well as they're just not good ecologically for the flow of the creek.
Right.
So we're knocking them down so the creek flows better.
Correct.
I like that.
Any other questions? Does this have anything to do, I saw Mr. Cope was in the news talking about the tracks that went through and some of it was breaking down by the Monocacy. I think it was near one of our parks, the one that's closed until fishing season.
Oh, that's Monocacy Meadow. That's a
Yeah,
different.
this
That's a
has
different
nothing to
park.
do
No.
with that at all.
Nope.
Okay. Any other questions? If not,
Are there a number?
yes.
Are there a number of obstructions in there?
There's about 8 that are going to get removed as part of this project.
And they're old and decrepit and.
Yes.
All right, motion to move it forward.
So moved.
Thank you. Okay, next we have, excuse me, get my glasses on. Next we have Professional Construction Contractors, Inc. Whereas on March 8th, 2023, Northampton County Council received a request from the county executive for county council to adopt a resolution approving a contract in the amount of $170,046 for a term of 3 months with Professional Construction Contractors Incorporated for the Graysdale Nursing Home Sidewalk Project. Mr. Amelie's still at the rostrum, so if there's any questions. Mrs. Zirinsky?
So this sidewalk near Graysdale, I don't know if you have been to Graysdale recently, but the road leading from Graysdale to
in front of the
near
conservation district.
Yeah,
Yep.
in front of the Greystone building is horrible. There's like potholes everywhere, and I can't understand how, not only the people visiting, the people that are there, but the people that work there every day, and then, the people who work in the Greystone building, they're really putting a lot of wear and tear on their vehicles as well. It's, seems like that's something that should get addressed as well.
Yep, I actually have a paving project that'll be going out to bid pretty shortly to address that.
Super. Thank you.
Any other, Mr. Kusick?
This was originally from the 2019 bond issue. Is this funding that was left over, or was this originally part of that project?
It's-
I don't recall.
It's to use up leftover funding.
So there was additional funding, and this is what we're doing with it?
Correct.
Okay, good use, thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Thank you, Mr. Amealy. Motion to move this forward?
So moved.
Okay. All right, that does it for the contract. Oh, Mr. Myers, I'm sorry. Mr. Amealy, before you leave, I didn't see Mr.
I have a question for
Myers.
you. Maybe you can answer this question, maybe you can't. Do you know how many properties that the county owns that we're renting to folks that are on Section 8?
I have no idea.
Do you know who we can contact to find out who?
Maybe DCED would be the department to ask.
Mr. Dortinger, possibly. You should know.
Okay. Well, I'll get with the staff here and we'll send a memo out to find out where it is, because I'm trying to understand if we have some places in Easton that are under our jurisdiction, because Easton's claiming they're not theirs.
Okay.
So I just want to find out what it is, because there seems to be some controversy going on about folks don't want to make claims to get stuff fixed because they're on Section 8. If they make a claim, they're getting billed for it. So I want to find out who they belong to.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, can't they make claims under the whole homes repair building?
What's going on with them right now, and it's been a long discussion, I spent 2 or 3 days, is that these people are living in these homes and nobody knows who they actually belong to. If a light blows in the refrigerator and they ask for it, they're being charged for it.
Okay.
If something breaks on the stove, they're being charged for it. And it's like, wait a minute, if we own it, why are we charging them? So I'm trying to find out who exactly owns them, if they're ours or if they're City of Easton, and then we'll take it from there.
Can't you do a title search or a deed search for something like that?
I just need to find out, because Easton Housing Authority is saying no, and there's some folks saying that they are, and they may be ours, so we just got to find out what 2 places they are.
Yeah.
You know, one's the Church Street residence, the other one's the Elm Street projects.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we're going to move on to the final agenda item, which is the discussion regarding the Upper Mount Bethel Township LERTA. And we have representatives of Upper Mount Bethel Township here, and you received a packet. So if you state your name for the clerk.
Good afternoon. My name's Ed Nelson. I'm the manager of Upper Mount Bethel Township. And with me, I have Supervisor Bob Teal. I have Dave LaFleur, who's representing Ultra Poly. Rich Grisella is representing the Bangor Area Commercial Industrial Development Association, and Rich Grisella. Mark Chavone, who's representing is here to support us from the school district. Is there
What?
PowerPoint?
Hold on. Yeah.
Which way?
Shoot. We should close the doors then, too. Good, okay, yeah. If you want to just hold a second, I'm going to close the doors. I don't know what's going on out there.
I gotta put my glasses on here.
Okay, Mr. Nelson, go right ahead.
Okay, Upper Mount Bethel Township, the idea of me being here today is to discuss the LERTA. And as so eloquently was put before I got up here, to quote, you guys drive the bus, we build the engine. So we're looking for the support from the council to continue the LERTA for the remaining 5 years that was applied for. And the LERTA in Upper Mount Bethel Township is 800 acres of I-2 zone and about approximately 200 acres in the I-3 zone. Upper Mount Bethel Township is the largest municipality in Northampton County. It's 44 square miles. It has 28,166 acres. It has 11.5 miles of Delaware Riverbank, and we host the Portland Columbia Bridge. This is a map that displays the open space and the public land in Upper Mount Bethel Township. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of open space. Upper Mount Bethel Township balances park and open space with the industrial objective. And we do that by hosting the Appalachian Trail. We host the Mincy Lake. We host the Bear Swamp. We host the Conservancy. We host the 171-acre Township Preserve. We also have a 90-acre community park. And within the boundaries of the municipality, we have 2,500 acres of national park. This is a zoning overlay of the LERTA within the township. And as you can see, it represents a little bit less than 3% of the total land mass of the township. This map here demonstrates the land uses in the township. And we have 28,160 acres, 44 square miles. And once you start to subtract out some of the land uses that provide us revenue, we have 319, or in Act 319, we have 13,634 acres, which is reduced tax. We have Act 149, which is the utilities, and we host the power company, the phone company, the gas company, the water companies, and the telephone companies. And they comprise 2,566 acres. Then we subtract out federal lands at 2,460 acres. And we subtract out of that 28,000 Act 515, which is the original Act 319, and there's 2,377 acres in that reduced tax act. The county owns 868 acres we don't receive any tax revenue on. The state owns 396 acres that we don't receive any revenue on. We have 392 easements in the township that we do not receive any revenue on. The township owns 384 acres that we do not receive any revenue on. Bangor Area School District has 119 acres of land. The railroad has 110 acres of land. We have 32 acres of cemetery, and we have 20 acres of churches, and 12 acres belong to the fire department. And all of this acreage is reduced or tax exempt. So in the end, we actually have only 4,788 acres out of 28,000 that pay the full boat. In the LERTA area with the development, the possible development of RPL, this is a map that just shows you what would be the workforce availability, focusing mainly on the Bangor and Penargil and communities. Direct and indirect job creation, we have for the Commonwealth, it would be a total of 11,465 jobs. For the Northampton County should be about 7,781 jobs. Bangor Area School District, and I know I'm reading what you're reading as well, 6,112 jobs, and Upper Mount Bethel Township, 5,007 jobs. That's just a map there. In addition to those direct jobs, we're looking at possibly 5% of each building projected to be office space of a 3,500 square foot office. So the services that would be needed by the employees are lunches, event catering, business supplies, consumer services. These are all peripheral services that would be generated from the development. Building services would garner $4 million annually from landscaping, snow removal, janitorial services, HVAC maintenance, and equipment repairs. Comparison net benefit summaries from a warehouse that would represent 300,000 square feet versus a manufacturing facility, which is 300 square feet. The warehouse would cost $34 million to build. The manufacturing plant would cost $65 million to build. However, the direct jobs from the warehouse would only generate 150 versus 350. Payroll from the warehouse would be a little over $6 million versus $160 million for manufacturing, and the average annual net benefit would be the township under a warehouse would be $67,000 versus $134,000. The school district is $273,000 under a warehouse and $428,000 under manufacturing, $41,000 for the county under warehousing and $45,000 under manufacturing, and the state would get $879,000 versus under manufacturing, they would receive $2,835,000. The next slide is a repetition of that, but at 1 million square feet. I don't think you need me to go through that again, but I would like for you to just look at the county. The county would from a warehouse, would recover $132,000 versus manufacturing $172,000. And then the next three slides represent the net benefits, an annual fiscal net benefit for each of the township, the school district, and the county. And that would be the end of the slide presentation. However, with this information, what I would like you to take away from this this afternoon is how important this is to the community. We hear a lot, or I hear in my position as the manager, a lot of the discussion about open space and farmland preservation. As you can see, almost 83% of the community is already either tax exempt or tax reduced. There has been no conversation with any of the involvement that I've been involved with the developer to indicate warehouse building at all. The focus has been totally on manufacturing, and that, from the slides that I just showed you, would show a much higher yield for all of us involved in this. The council, from what I understand, is that this is the 5th year anniversary of the council offering us the LRTA to work under. And we're asking that this gets extended the 5 years going forward so that we achieve the 10-year goal for the LRTA. I was in here some months ago, and we discussed the benefits of the negotiations that we have had from the municipality with RPL, and I talked about the NID. If we lose this LRTA, we lose the NID, and the NID is what offsets the LRTA progression as we go along. It would just put us out of business. We need this not only just from the upper Mount Bethel Township, but we need this revenue to help the school district, and with the peripheral jobs that I pointed out in the presentation, the Slate Belt itself will benefit greatly from having this constructed, or given us the ability to bring some businesses in. So with that, I would offer to see if I can answer any questions from anybody about any of this.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. All right, I'm going to open it up to questions.
Yeah,
Ms. Kuzic.
okay, I'll start. I guess, having heard similar things from the Schrin development and the Bethlehem Steel sites outside of Hellertown there, we hear this over and over again, that this is not going to be warehouses, this is going to be manufacturing, and what happens? you can't sell the property, you can't attract somebody, given what interest rates are, you're gonna have to turn it around, it turns into a warehouse. So I guess my question is, what guarantees do you have? Is there anything in your zoning that would prevent this from just being developed into warehouses if they're unable to attract, manufacturing?
I don't know if there's any guarantees for anything.
That's what I was
But
talking about.
here's what I can tell you, that this Board of Supervisors has negotiated with this developer in good faith. We have gone back and forth for the needs of both the community and for the developer. We know that there's competition that is presenting itself over in New Jersey, where they're getting a 30-year tax-free break for manufacturing in New Jersey. We do know that manufacturing is on an upscale. The warehousing is not as prevalent as an investment as it has been in the past. And we also know that from the governor's office that he is promoting manufacturing and processing it from his seat. So all of these things together just gives us encouragement that we will be able to fulfill the obligations to the residents by providing manufacturing and processing, and also giving the developer the opportunity to construct something that could be beneficial for them as well.
Yeah, I would agree, but like I said, having been here as long as I have and having heard some of the stories from other developers, I apologize if I've become jaded or cynical. The other question I had is, you had those numbers of potential jobs. How did you come up with those?
I don't have it right in front of me, but there's a source. Let me go, if it goes back here. It's from Impact. Yeah, where are they? I lost it here. On the bottom of those pages, those, what was it, Impact? It was Newmark Economic Impact Study.
Okay, so they,
And those are older numbers, and now there's newer numbers, and hopefully by tomorrow night, I'll be able to present those newer numbers to you as well.
okay. And I guess my other question is, I was here when we approved this 5 years ago. There was little or no opposition or concern from the community. My understanding, and from what I've read, there's been considerable opposition that's been raised since that time has occurred. And the other question I have is the time in general. Why is this taking so long? I mean, 5 years, children have been birthed and sent off to school. How come this hasn't moved more rapidly?
Well, I have a couple of those in my family, matter of fact. And Mr. Kuzic, I've been around for quite a while, as well as you have. This was agreed to 5 years ago. It probably, my understanding, I was not in my seat at that time, but it took 2 years before we had interest into the property. And as we progressed, those folks that are not so happy with the idea of having this property developed have appropriately challenged the progress. A lot of that has happened over, since we started this progress. Once it gets going, I don't see that it's going to be a slow roll going forward. Once we get the first one done, I'm sure that it'll move right along. But I'll be real honest. I've been in local, my Upper Mount Bethel Township politics for 45 years. 45 years. That's older than some of you are that's sitting here. Yeah. So,
I'm 47.
but there's not a community or a corporation in this country that does not function economically. The financial solvency of any municipality depends on what they can attract and what they control and what they can do. our comprehensive plan, which was written in 2020, outlines that the zoning is supposed to be balanced. I just read to you how imbalanced we are. You only have, what, 5,000 out of 28,000 people paying full tax rate. If we continue that way, we're going to sink. I mean, you just cannot keep doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting different results, especially when you're sitting there reading the paper every day, talking about what the inflation rate is, how much food has gone up, and how many people are getting laid off. There has to be some kind of help for us to be able to help us sustain. We have two communities on either side of us that are living proof of what happens when you don't adapt as you go along. They're in such financial position, and I'm being sarcastic, but they can't even fill a pothole. You know, and that's not where we want to be. I live in this community. Do I want to see trucks and businesses? No. But the reality is the world around us is going to change us if we don't take it by the horns and change it and be a part of the change ourselves. So all I'm standing here before you asking is that you give us the opportunity to see through the next 5 years so that we can prosper and we can survive. Yeah.
I'm gonna, Mr. Grusella is up here. I just want to say, I know there's others in the audience, and this is a committee, so it's not as formal as a regular meeting. I don't know how, I mean, I want to invite you to certainly speak to something. I'm not going to exclude anyone. I don't know exactly how you want to go in order, but if there's something you want to add, if you just get my attention, I'll certainly bring you up. Otherwise, I'll ask before I adjourn if there's anyone that wants to say anything. But a distinguished former council member, council president, who was council president when I started. I don't want to age you, Rich, but you know, it is what it is. And state rep, Mr. Grusella, if you could give your name.
It's Rich Grusella, and I live in Lower Mount Bethel Township, and I am a member of the BACIDA.
You want to spell that out?
My BACI.
No. What exactly is that, Smarty?
That's the Bangor Area Commercial Industrial Development Authority. And I was not a member when I was a member of the State House. Ron, I knew how old I was when I sat down. The first council picture used to be over here with about 3 or 4. Now I see
Quite a
all
few.
around.
Quite a
The
few.
reason I stood up, I wasn't going to speak, but John, I have to answer your question. I feel responsible to answer the question, and I'm going to ruffle some feathers here doing it, but I'm retired now, so in a way it doesn't matter. John, part of the problem, we've never received any really marketing support over those years from the LVEDC. It's one of the reasons why the Bangor School Board initially started this. I was in office at the time. My office in Upper Mount Bethel used to act almost as a minor marketing place. Businesses that wanted to come in to the district, into the area, would come to my office. And I would tell them, I don't have anything to say about that. Send them to Upper Mount Bethel, or again, the LVEDC. Really never marketed our area. We lost 3 or 4 that I can think of while I was a representative 13 years ago, because we didn't have somebody marketing for us, and we also didn't have at the time what other municipalities had with respect to where they could locate. So if I came in with a business and I wanted to locate, the first thing I found out is that, well, you have to go to the planning, you have to go to the zoning, you have to go to this thing, that thing, whereas some of the more progressive townships, you would come in and the developer would say, what track would you like? Site 1, Site 2, Site 3. So that, I appreciate your cynicism, and I agree. And I want to end with this, and Solicitor Spadoni, who was one of my students, that's how old I am, and Mr. Myers much later, who's younger. But I would just end seriously to tell you that it's needed. I mean, it really is It's something that I see now could really benefit. And the reason I mentioned Mr. Spinoni is I tried to put into an agreement of sorts that no warehouses would be built. And I was told that we could legally not do that. We could not legally bind anybody, well, at that time, really, the township. We could not legally, as the IDA, bind the township. It's up to the township what their zoning and what they want to approve. So sorry to take that much time, but I wanted to give you a truthful answer. And I definitely do not want any warehouses. And I know as a member of the IDA feels the same way, and we will do whatever we can because the manufacturing is a plus, and we don't want the warehouse. And one final thing is the rail. You have to remember the rail is up there. And one of the positive things is the rail that went through the old power plant, will definitely, or at least, I've been told by some, that it should alleviate any truck traffic if these manufacturers will come in and use the rail. So, thank you.
Would you mind taking any questions?
I don't want to supersede Ed. Ed represents the township, and I'm
sorry.
I'm just here because we're an arm of the school district.
Right.
And I support the school district's effort. And I hate to, belabor this. I spent half my career in Harrisburg on the Tax Reform Committee, bipartisan committee. I was the Democratic chairman, and I can tell you the one thing we agreed on, Republicans and Democrats alike, was tax ratables without students lessen the property tax. So bringing in tax ratables without students is a definite to the school district. And Mark Chavone's here from the school district. We did bring in three. We did over the years bring in about 2 or 3 companies that have brought in millions of dollars in tax revenue to the school district.
Well, thank you, Rich. And as people, I don't know if any are here yet, I would often talk about how fortunate young people like myself at the time was when you were president of council to break us in and help us. It was great, good time. I remember you're saying, we can agree that just don't be disagreeable. You can disagree, but just don't be disagreeable. We try that. I try it. I don't always succeed, but I try. So anyway, okay. Well, I've got 2. I saw her first, so I'm gonna recognize her first.
So I just have a couple questions
Why am I
or
apologizing?
comments. Both the LVDC and the LVPC have raised concerns about this warehousing project. LVDC says that they don't think that it can have manufacturing, that most of this is going to be high cube, which means this isn't going to create all the jobs that you're saying that it is, which means it's not going to generate that tax revenue that you think might be projected in terms of your county. The project itself also requires a wastewater treatment plant that eventually you might have to take over as a municipality. Now, the discussion that we had at the LVPC about that was concern about the wastewater runoff, the effluent, and all sorts of environmental concerns. But I'm wondering how that's all going to factor into this, and also what do you characterize as a spin-off job?
I'm going to let Lisa Pector answer the questions about the wastewater treatment plant and runoff. But from the LVPC, I'm going to be candid because I've had the opportunity to sit and vote on some of the issues or the plans that come before them. And there's not been one LVPC member that's sat into the negotiations with us. So for them to guess what the outcome's going to be is statistical. But I'm telling you, personally, sitting in those negotiations, we've had good, solid negotiations, and I feel as though they've all been in good faith. A lot of the recommendations that come out of the LVPC, the ordinances are the law that we got to follow, plain and simple. Whether they're outdated, whether they're reasonable, whether they're unreasonable, it doesn't mean, if they're on the books and that's the ordinance or the law that we're going to follow, that's what we should be following. A lot of the LVPC recommendations come from people's emotions because they don't like or they dislike the situation. And I have asked candidly in a meeting that when we voted on a particular developer building something in another township, whether they met the requirements of the ordinance of the township. And it was tried to bypass the answer, and I asked again, and finally they said, yes, it is. So, you know, we can't have it both ways. And we can't keep guessing as to what the outcome's going to be because we think or that we don't like personally. This is a community, I've lived in this community most of my life. I grew up here. I've been involved with the township for over 40 years, and this is important to me. I've sat on council for 20 years. And as manager, some of the things that I have to fix today, I'm fixing because I screwed up somewhere along the line. Because a lot of times you can't see what's going to happen going forward. But when I started in office, we had 2,200 people in Mount Bethel. Today we have 6,800. I worked at the school district, security officer, for 10 years. Kids just left. They would come out of school and they would go someplace to get a job. There's no place in the Slate Belt really today for these kids to come out of school and get some employment and stay in the community and be a part of it. I've coached for over 40 years. Today, I can't even get a volunteer without somebody wanting to have some kind of compensation for their time because they have to drive half hour, 45 minutes, an hour to get some work. And they're tired when they get back and they want to spend time with their family, not out on a ball field or in scouts or in a church activity. It just doesn't happen. We have to start thinking about creating a community within our communities as we move forward. And unfortunately, that means that we're going to have to give up some things to get there. My parents, when I was raised, and I'm sure most all of you had the same thing, they wanted to make it better for us than it was for them. And today, all I hear is, I don't care. This isn't working for me. I want this. I don't need this. It's all I. And it's not from the kids. It's from the older folks. So we have got to get back on track, and we cannot do that unless we have some place for people to be employed so that they're close to home and they can understand what needs to be done to be a part of the community. And I'm sorry if I lost my composure, but I feel passionate about this.
I see that you feel passionate about it, and I understand the want and the need to build a community, and the want and the need to have people to stay in the community and to be able to work there. That's not exactly what we might be having. Like you said yourself, that you've made decisions in the past that didn't pan out the way you wanted to, and you think you're redoing them now. But if this becomes a high cube warehouse or something else where robots are manufacturing, the people in your community aren't going to have those jobs anyway. These 7,781 jobs that may or may not be spin-off jobs by your maps are not just generated in Upper Mount Bethel, they stretch all the way out to New Jersey. So people are going to be commuting into your area. One of the things that the LVPC didn't necessarily get was that truck traffic study and all the cars and the emissions and everything else that's going to be part of this in this one small area. The things that the township members have been asking for, and I know that you listen to them. I know that they've been at these meetings and they come and they want their concerns addressed, but some of their concerns just haven't been addressed. And they come to us wanting more answers. And we don't have those answers to give them because we can't see in the future either. And we can't promise jobs. We can't promise the tax revenue.
I'm not trying to promise anything other than the opportunity to create it. And I will have to say that, yes, 20 years ago, well, actually, it was probably 30 years ago when I was on board, and I made some decisions that I have to fix today. I hope over the last 40 years, I got smarter. And this is an opportunity. Yes, there's people asking all kinds of questions. I spent somewhere in the area of about $100,000 last year trying to answer right-to-knows and of solving some legal issues. But, you know, they have legitimate questions, they do. But at the same time, some of those questions get answered time and time again, over and over, and they have to start listening as well as trying to figure out what's their next question is going to be. So, you know, I can't say anything more than we need the opportunity with the 5 years remaining on this LRTA to give us a chance to create an environment that can be healthy for Upper Mount Bethel Township and the residents.
I guess part of what I'm saying, though, is that your perception of what is healthy for the residents doesn't always or necessarily meet what the residents perceive is the quality of life that they want. And
Neither did Abraham Lincoln. So, you know, you have to go with what you think is the best shot. If you're going to lead, you have to lead. And sometimes some people don't want to follow. But
Excuse me,
if
I don't want to
you-
cut anybody
Yep.
off.
I'm sorry.
And we can
no,
come
I
back
just
if you.
want the wastewater treatment plant.
I'm gonna let-
Well, before you sit down, Ed, and I know, Ms. Parent, I want to get her up, was there any other questions while Mr. Nelson is there? And then I'm going to,
Well, we all have questions.
all right, well,
Well,
hold it. Ms. Vargo Hefner, I'll go right down the line.
I want to double back to the actual origin of this LRTA because I was here and I passed the first one. And so I want to hear from you or whoever can answer it succinctly. It was 5 years ago. What has happened since and where are we? Because at that time, I believe that there was interest but no actual identified tenants, correct?
Yes.
And so I'd like to hear a little bit of an update on where we are with the project right now, because I want to hear economically where we are with them. or
I mean,
fiscally.
if you want to bring in,
Yeah,
Very
I'm gonna let Lisa Pector answer that question.
Lisa, if you'd identify yourself when you come up.
Yes, Lisa Pector. I'm with River Point Logistics, RPL East, and Demi Road. I believe that the initial presentation was in 2017, and really nothing has, the goals laid out in that presentation are now finally starting to be realized. And the purpose of the LRTA being placed on the property back then was that to entice a developer to come along to develop the property. We didn't purchase the property until towards the end of 2019. And the only reason we won the bid to purchase was because we gave a 30-day due diligence period and close immediately after due diligence. So we had previous knowledge of the site and the background from 2006 when we wanted to develop the project for open, kind of like clustered open space residential development, which was met with opposition. And so we went away because that was trying to rezone this property, at least portion of it, for residential use. So we spent a majority of, 2020, obviously pandemic stymied our, some of our investigative work. So much so that, the bat study that we had to do, the guy couldn't touch the bats because they didn't want the bats to get COVID from humans. So it took
ironic.
a long time. And obviously all of us trying to figure out how to work during COVID and how to have meetings and whatnot. It took us a while to figure that out. Now we finally have a majority of our studies done. Currently, we have a subdivision plan in process, which included a traffic impact study, which actually technically wasn't supposed to be provided until we put in land development plans for each lots. So we actually went above and beyond in the initial subdivision stages. And we do have some subdivision, some land development plans that are actually in process on the main RPL site. The economic impact study was, we had them look at the 300 and the 300,000 square feet manufacturing, and similar with 1 million, so that we could get a general guide as to if 5 million square feet was created with a 50-50 mix, because we didn't know. We have always worked at making this site a manufacturing-focused site. We are spending extra money, time, and effort to get more electric capacity than we were putting in a 62 megawatt substation. We're looking at a 100 megawatt substation on the power plant side of the street due to a specific user's need for electric for their recycling process. And their group would actually be working in conjunction with Ultra Poly. We have 2 users that are actually looking to work in conjunction with existing manufacturing businesses that are located in Upper Mount Bethel Township.
So could you, let me stop you and remind me, how many actual tenants could this place hold? Or does it depend? Like have you built it yet? We haven't started any building. So you're waiting to get the tenants before you even start to build?
We have one plan that has final land development approval. That is 303 Demi Road for 420,000 square feet. We have one lot on the power plant side of the street. That's a 379,000 square foot building that has preliminary approval, but we wanted to rework the site a little with checking the rail that goes past that building, so we were not going to disrupt any rail freight traffic flow. That would be going to Lot 2, which is on the power plant itself, and that's where we're working with the user to design the building and then figuring out phasing so that we can take down the power plant, which is a 24-month process in itself to demo that thing. And that's after we get all the permits and approvals to do so. So we've had an extensive amount of permitting. On the RPL proper side of the street, we have sewer and water, that capacity that we need to solve for. We had been working with Portland Water for a while to see if we could provide water from our wells into their system, balance out our fire tower with their fire towers to provide adequate fire flow, not only for our development, but for Air Liquide, et cetera. There's a lot of engineering and time that needs to go into all that. That's what's taking a majority of the time.
And there's room for how many more tenants?
There's 13 buildings currently planned. Under the old zoning ordinance, we could have done 26 and done over 7 million square feet here. So with the text amendment, we actually reduced the amount of square footage and the impervious coverage ratio.
So that's a total of total of 13?
13,
From 26 to 13?
yeah.
And 2 tenants, 1 final development, 1 prelim.
We have actually 2 other RFPs out, but on land development, we have 1 final, 1 prelim, and 3 in process for preliminary.
So if we grant this and we give you the 5-year extension, what do you foresee realistically? Given all the, I mean, obviously you lost a year and a half to COVID as everyone else did, but what would you do with 5 more years?
Well, we're trying to process our subdivision plan. We have to get final on that, which is probably another year to get to final, and that's best case. We have a lot of DEP regulations and the sewer water facilities, which LVPC had recommended that the sewer and water facilities would not be privately owned. That is why we asked Upper Mount Bethel Township to take over ownership once it is fully financially sustaining.
Have either of the other two entities that have, I assume, Upper Mount Bethel has said yes to a tax as well as the school district, either one of you backing out?
You can answer the question, please, sir.
No,
Well,
well, they can't
they
hear the
said-
nod on the recording. I'm sorry. I need you to come forward.
Well, I apologize.
Sorry.
And I know better than that. You mean backing out of the project? No,
Yes.
nope. Or LERTA?
Well,
no.
because again, if, I mean, I have been only here 5 years. I've never seen a LERTA review before. I mean, we had other LERTAs, so this is unusual for me. So I'm just wondering.
I'm just going to say, and please, if you could be succinct, and we have to try and be succinct because there's another committee meeting coming up. And so, you know, as I said earlier, I just want to reinforce, I know an ordinance is going to be introduced.
Yes.
To extend this, and that means that 2 weeks hence from tomorrow, the first meeting of April, this would be on the agenda for public comment and debate. So, I mean, we don't have to get it all out today. But I mean, I don't want to hold anybody up from asking questions, but I just wanted to let you guys know, I think there's a courts and corrections meeting coming up. So if you, is the school district and the township, you're still on board?
Well, my name is Mark Chavone. I'm the business manager for the Bangor Area School District. And I don't think it's in my position that I'm in, I have the authority to say that the school district is, you know, supports another 5 years, because that's really a board decision, you know, and I'm just the administrator for the school district. But the board did approve the LERTA back in 2017, which had a 10-year expiration. And so we just, you know, we follow what the county and what the township ultimately decides, you know, as far as the
Just to
LERTA.
clarify then, because that was very good what you said. You did a 10-year LERTA. So the school district's in it for the 10 years.
Yes.
So yeah, and council, I don't know why.
But our LERTA said that we would follow the township and the counties.
Well, the townships did 10.
Township did 10.
Didn't we do 10 also?
Yeah, you did 10 also, but the stipulation in the contract was
5.
that at the end of 5 years, really all we needed to do was submit a report to council to let you know where we were and what we were doing. There was no mention of the fact that it had to be brought before the council for a vote.
And that's what I'm getting to, Mr. Nelson, because I don't want to move along. So your township, you're not voting on it again, because in your mind, this
We have it.
just goes on.
Yep.
And in the
As well
school
as the
district, you can't speak for the board, but it sounds like in your mind, it's just going on anyway.
Ron,
For-
Yes.
Before we go any further,
yeah.
we need a clarification from the solicitor. He needs to speak about this.
We should talk about the genesis of how this occurred.
Mr. Solicitor?
Initially, and I'm not sure, but Mr. G will help me out here.
Yes.
It came to my attention that there was a sunset provision at the end of 2022.
That's correct.
In my review of the ordinance that was passed, there is a clause, and I do not have it in front of me, because I didn't read my, that there was to be a notice from Upper Mount Bethel Township to the county.
That's correct.
And I questioned Mr. G about that.
Economic development
Correct.
needed to have that response.
And he chased that down for me.
Okay.
That letter was
Okay.
dated October 23rd,
24th.
24th. I received it 2 weeks ago.
Yep. But
As a result of that, I reviewed the ordinance and prepared this ordinance for the other 5 years.
Okay.
I just want you to know the genesis of this, because there's a statement that I don't think is correct, without being argumentative. We were required to do this.
Well, let me ask you a question, Mr. Solicitor. I'm going to go then to Tom, if you don't mind, Lord, because Mr. Solicitor, you're speaking from our perspective. I asked them if, from their perspectives, they feel it's a 10-year. They don't have it for their, because everybody does it their own way. School district, the township, I mean municipality and county. County said we had to revisit it in 5 years. I'm asking from their perspectives as a township and as a school district, they don't have to revisit it. They got the full 10 years.
And just to be clear.
Or am I misstating that?
No, but let's be clear here. There is a 10-year tax deduction.
Yes.
That could run past the 5 years.
Right.
If it's granted in 3 years, they have another 10.
Okay, I'm going to give the floor now to our District 4 rep, Mr. Giovanni, because I know he has been following this, and I'll get to you, but I want, because you got into something, Mr. Spadoni, that I know Mr. Giovanni has been following very closely.
Good, I appreciate that, thank you.
So go ahead.
I got a copy of the ordinance, and it was here before I was on council, that it was approved. And in that ordinance, it was Article 12, I'm pretty sure, it says that the township must alert the county of what their progress was. And it was a signed letter from the alert, from the supervisor. That has been done on October 24th. I have a copy of it, because I was copied on that. And it was sent to Economic Development for that LERTA.
It was October 24th.
October 24th, yes.
Okay.
At that time, when I got it in December, Miss Lori Hefner was the president. I also shot her a copy of it. Now, it went there. We got a receipt from the deputy of Economic Development, Tina Smith, that she received it. And my honest opinion, they sat on it. That's what I'm going to tell you. They actually sat on it.
Did they reply at all?
No, and that's why I contacted Tom Giovanni about what was the situation with the LERTA, because we had never heard a word.
Once the letter went out and they received it, you're telling me that you did not get a response?
No.
Okay. All right.
No,
I'm sorry.
the only reason, and I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn here or not, but the only thing that I understand from just hearsay is that the objective was to, people weren't satisfied with the continuation of the LERTA because they're worried about warehouses being built and,
All right, no, I just wanted to clarify. I'm going to go back to Mr. Giovanni.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
I called the deputy director. I called the director of Economic Development. She did not return my call, and I understand she was on vacation. I called again. I emailed her numerous times. I finally got the call and talked to the deputy director of Economic Development, and his response was, our county exec is holding up on LERTA because we don't want warehouses. And I told him, did you read the ordinance? Did you see what it says? 6535, that's what it is. And that's what it was in 2017. They got a letter from Mr. Pinter, that was a supervisor, explaining all that. So here we are today.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say before I?
Let me tell you something.
Because I'm going to probably wrap it up at quarter of. There's no disrespect intended, because there's a courts and corrections meeting, and I guarantee you, Mr. Myers, as president, when this is on the agenda, there will be as much time as anybody needs. It'll probably be the last thing on old business. But as a committee, only because I'm backed up.
Yep, I understand
And I
that.
don't want the court people.
But I would like to
Hold
say,
it. There's
I would,
people that haven't talked yet.
oh,
And I just-
Tom, go ahead.
We're going to wrap this up.
I just want to make one comment. And this is my comment. My father-in-law lives up there in Evergreen Village.
Yeah.
It's a 55 and over village. It's a village with property that's a 500 by 200, and it's all double wide trailers. And he's 84 years old, and he's paying the bulk of the taxes. So this has to go through. That guy can't, he's gonna have to, I do his taxes. He may have to move out of there because he can't afford it, point blank. And these are senior citizens. Yes, I know people complain about what's going on there, but that, Mr. Nelson is correct. That northern tier of our county is suffering, and you need to help them. We need to help them.
Okay, and are you finished then? Thank you. And I'm going to take a few minutes. I'm just going to get whoever didn't talk, and that'll be you, but I want to let, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am Robert Teal, Vice Chairman of the Upper Mount Bethel Township Board of Supervisors. I'm also Chairman of the Planning Commission, and I have a meeting in about an hour.
Well, I've got my.
We've had extensive meetings. Yeah, I'm not going to bore you to death, but we've had extensive public meetings.
Yes.
Answers, questions on this project. I am also the chief negotiator with RPL on what they can and cannot do. They've been very, very open with me about a user coming in. They call me regularly, say, what do you think about this guy? I have reiterated with them many, many times, we do not really want warehousing. So if that's a concern, I don't think it's really a great concern. I tell you the very bottom line truth, there's more money in manufacturing than there is in warehousing. And they can make a lot more money in manufacturing than they can in warehousing. And that's a God's honest truth, you know? So we're looking to have jobs, manufacturing in Mount Bethel, but of a low impact. This project, if it were anywhere else in Mount Bethel, I would not be in favor of it, truthfully. It's right there by the river, right there by the bridge. It's 800 feet to the Portland Bridge, and we have been negotiating with other users that their marketing is New Jersey and New York. So they go across the river right now, and they're out of our hair. And they bring that. Ms. Gorinsky, I know that you've worked with us on sludge and all those things in the past. It was very concerning to me, that power plant. We have been enduring that power plant since 1953. That's our love canal right now. They have agreed through extensive research and hired one of the best environmental cleanup companies in the state of Pennsylvania and beyond to get Metropolitan Edison down and cleaned up and gone away. I have been working with Lisa Bechter, and she'll tell you, on environmental descriptions of these proposed buildings. I want them to be environmentally and rurally acceptable to our community. That's the truth. And I hold the line on RPL, even though I want the manufacturing. I want the jobs. We are in a depressed area. We lost all of the garment workers. We lost all of those things in our area. Nobody really wants to help us. It was very painful for me this year to have to give a 2 mil increase. Had this project gone through, there would have been no need to raise the taxes on anyone, We would have had over $2 million, and we did not have to raise taxes. Unfortunately, that did not happen because there's too many pushbacks.
No, you have
And the
a
state,
very
there's a lot of pushbacks on
area.
this, yes.
I've gone up that way many times, and actually,
I've lived there all my life.
But see, I'm going to, and you'll get a chance again, but I have to close it out, and I'm going to end it with you, Mr. Goffredo.
Mr. Nelson, real quick, just to put these numbers in a frame of reference, can you tell us what your budget is in Upper Mount Bethel Township, roughly? Because you say the average annual net benefit of.
Since I just got back from suspension, I'll tell you exactly.
Go ahead.
$3,800,000 is about.
So
where we're
potentially
at.
you could be receiving in net benefits, 1.68, that's roughly 40% of your total
Yes,
revenue.
yes, sir.
I know a lot of people have concerns about warehousing. I just find it very ironic that the only time we talk about the slate belt in here is when we're being told what we can and can't do. The slate belt is an area that is not being exaggerated when there is no job opportunities. When you were asking about spin-off jobs, restaurants, places for people to buy things. There's no stores, there's no restaurants, there's no nothing because people don't work there. And people have to go elsewhere to do anything. So when I see people that live in the slate belt, Mr. Teal, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Giovanni, myself, advocating for this and understand the financial impacts I would listen to those people. Everything else just sounds like grandstanding. And when I hear Mr. McClure not giving any notice, not giving any, email letter to say, hey, get an email to us, send a notice, let us know how you guys are doing, just to say that we're gonna pull the rug out from underneath you, seems like bad business by our county. So I hope you guys have every opportunity to do and set out what you set out to do. And I hope we can be very supportive of them because they need it.
If I could just add this, on March 15th, 5 years ago, we got the LERTA. On March 18th, I'm being told that there was a press release by the executive to tout the job opportunities of the Slate Belt. But before you end, I just want to make sure, Mr. LaFleur is here from Ultra Poly. He's not going to talk, but I want you to understand, he also now has a third building that's being constructed off of Demi Road that is going to benefit from the use of the LERTA as well. And that money, we have had discussions where the money he's going to save off the LERTA is going to be turned back into enhancing that facility and also enhancing more jobs as we go along.
Okay, and honestly, yeah, the president of council is going to end this now. I just want to say, you only have less than 20% of your land that you can use and I saw that. And over the years, people have promised many things, and because I don't want to put you under a microscope. They're going to make jobs, they're going to make this. So, I mean, that horse left the barn. I don't want you to be penalized just because of them. But, Mr. Myers, as far as I'm concerned, the Finance Committee's over and it's yours, so if you want to
Okay,
make
just
a
a couple of things.
Sure.
Before we finish up with that, with this not getting, are you being affected by emergency services if we don't get this done?
Yes, that.
Without a doubt.
Okay.
Because
my memory, just real quick, my memory's a few weeks back, maybe a couple of months back, didn't Susan Wild come up there and drop $250,000 to do some work at one of your fire departments?
Well, I don't think we've seen that yet, but that's
But she has
what's
proposed
discussed,
that.
yes.
So that will be affected if the LERTA is not.
It could be, but from the LERTA, from the NID.
Okay, the NID is going to be affected.
Is going
That will
to
affect that.
Yeah, the LERTA is going to kill the NID. The NID is going to enhance all of our emergency services. We're going to get equipment as well as training and possibly even a facility. So yes, it's going to diminish our ability to provide emergency services across the board.
Okay.
We have already given $1 million.
I got your answer. I need to move on. But Ms. Peck, you are Lou Pector's daughter?
Yes, yes.
You wouldn't by chance have been at Moravian and graduated from there, were you?
Yes, I did.
I know you then. We've met before.
Academy? Yeah.
Yes, you know my son.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so we're going to end this.
Let's say one thing, Kerry.
Richard Casell, you can say anything you want. You were my teacher. You're my mentor.
Thank you, Mr. President Kerry. No, just one thing. Would you please get the LVEDC to help us out? I know they come before you, I think, for some funding. Could you tell them that we're the Slate Belt and they might want to come up and help us out? Thank you.
I'm sure Mr. Godfrey will make sure they know about it. Yes, Ms. Pector.
Is this going to be on the agenda tomorrow?
It will be on the agenda, and you will have more time to discuss this.
Then I will see.
Not the agenda, not tomorrow.
Not tomorrow?
In 2
Excuse me.
weeks. 2 weeks.
Tomorrow, it'll be on the agenda to be introduced.
Okay.
On
Discuss it in
April
2 weeks.
6th will be the public hearing.
2 weeks.
I won't be able to come back to attend. I'll be on my
April 6th.
honeymoon, I'm sorry. Might get divorced,
Will you have a representative come?
Yes, I will.
Thank
But I did have comments, and I wanted to respect your time tonight, so I did
Yeah,
not use my
and
time to do
Leave your
them.
information, and so we can get in touch with you if we have any questions. All right?
I apologize to anyone who
But I
wanted
have
to
another
talk.
meeting.
I apologize to council members who I didn't get to, but I have been reminded numerous times that we have a meeting bumping into this.
Thank you for your time.
And so I have to adjourn. But you'll have a chance in 2 weeks.
Ms.
Yeah.
Pector,
Ms. Pector.
if you want to send your comments to me, then I can distribute them to the members of council.
Yeah,
If you
that would
wanna-
be wonderful. I'd really appreciate that.
So, and Aileen will have my card if you.
You can contact her. To my next folks in the next meeting, Mr. DA, Mr. Courts, can we have 10 minutes and we'll go right into your meeting, if you can? 5 minutes? 5 minutes, and we'll go right to that meeting, okay? Okay, 10 minutes. We will, Courts and Corrections will take We'll start at 6:55.
So whatever you have. My meeting.